Hey kiddos, it's Mrs. Davis from here in my office at the district office. I wanted to be able to go through the survey that some of you guys took the other day and just make sure that you guys are ready for your SAGE test on Monday, that you're ready to rock and roll, and that you feel confident and know exactly what is being expected of you on Monday. So let's go through the survey. I'm going to share my screen with you. I gotta get the right screen up. Okay. So here is your screen. It says that, looks like, boy, I can't hardly read that. Over half of you feel like you are ready to take the SAGE quiz, the writing test. So that's great. Just remember the night before, get a good night's rest and come ready to work and ready to do your very best on the quiz. Now, the next question says, what is the difference between an opinion paper and an informative paper? I got a lot of great answers, but just to remind you, an opinion paper asks you to read a couple of passages and then make an opinion. So even if you don't agree with either one of the passages, you still have to make an opinion. Informative is you're summarizing information and pulling out key facts out of the information that you have just read to write a paper about it. All right, the next one says, what is plagiarism? Plagiarism is when you copy exactly word for word the words and the sentences in the text and you try to make it your own. It's actually illegal, so we want to make sure that in elementary school you learn that, that it's not okay to copy and paste anything from the text. So what you need to make sure that you do is use your big old brains that you have. I want you to remember all the key facts and information and then put it in your own words. The next one says, if I'm tempted to copy information from the passage, what could I do instead? Well, instead, you could write notes on your piece of paper and think about how you could reword those. You can still pull out key information and you can cite those sources, especially the fifth graders that are learning how to cite sources using quotation marks. But you can pull out that information and reword it in your own words. Do not use word for word. Question says, can I use the dictionary? That meant the dictionary that's built into SAGE, and absolutely the dictionary is up there to help you. The next question says, can I bring my own dictionary or calculator? The answer is no, so most of you got that right. You cannot bring your dictionary and you cannot bring a calculator. Here's a tricky one. Can I get up to use the bathroom? The technical answer should have been maybe, which over half of you got. Maybe means you can raise your hand and ask me if you can use the restroom if and only if it is an emergency. So you cannot use the restroom until you raise your hand and prove to me that's an emergency. You can't get up to get a drink, to get a tissue, to get a pencil, anything. You need to raise your hand and talk to one of the adults in the room first. Okay, so the next one said, if you answered maybe, give an example. Okay, if you're really, really sick, remember we talked about if you have a tummy ache, sometimes that's just because you're nervous about taking the test. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to throw up. You just might need to just take some deep breaths. Okay, so the next one says, well, I will never be given paper or pencils to use because I should do everything in my head. And almost all of you got that right. That is true. I will give you paper and pencil, and especially on a math test, I expect to see you writing on a piece of paper. Show your work. Okay, next one says, I should answer 12 questions and then go back and review those questions. This was a trick question. Most of you got it wrong. The answer should be, I should answer 5 questions and then go back. Remember how important it is to go back and review those? What happens if you pause your test? Does anyone remember? If you pause your test, you lose the questions that you've already answered. So we want to make sure that you have time to review so that you don't just pause your test and not have time to go back and rework those problems. So even if you flagged a question for review and marked it for review for later, if you pause it for more than 20 minutes, when you come back, that question is not there, even if you marked it for review. The next one said, I should only write 3 sentences for each prompt. That's false. You follow the directions. Some of them say 3 to 5 sentences. Some of them say 3 to 5 paragraphs. Follow the directions. And you just need to write a minimum of what they suggest. And you can absolutely write more if you want to. The next one says there is a thesaurus tool in the Sage toolbar. That is correct. Anyone want to tell me where it's at? It is in the dictionary tool. So you'll click dictionary, you can type in the word, and it will give you the option to look at the thesaurus to find words that are similar. So that would help you expand your vocabulary, put more creative words, and that'll help you score better on your writing test. Next one says, when the questions get harder, it means I'm doing better and better. The answer to that is true. Because SAGE is an adaptive test, it means that when you answer a question, it gives you a harder one. And when you answer that one correctly, it gives you a harder one. That means you are doing amazing. So if it's getting harder and harder, then that's just awesome. That's the best thing ever. Okay, here's the next one. Is it okay to ask your neighbor questions? The answer is no. Remember, if you are caught talking to your neighbor during the test, I have to throw your test out and make you start over. I'll have to add you to a different class. You'll have to start all the way over. There is no talking to your neighbors during the SAGE testing. This next one, it says, is it okay to ask your teacher how to spell a word? The answer is no. It's a test. We cannot tell you how to spell a word, and we can't tell you what a word means or anything like that. So the next one says, it is never okay to get out of your chair without raising your hand. The answer to that is true. No matter what, even if you have a bloody nose, you've got to raise your hand. I need to see that you really need help. But one of the adults in the room will be as quick as we can be to help you, but you need to raise your hand and let us know that you have an emergency or that you have a question. The next question says, you should always highlight the prompt or the question. The answer to that is true. Remember, SAGE has some tricks in it. Sometimes it asks for multiple answers. So it'll use a plural word, or it'll say, write an equation. That means you need to write the equation and not just the answer. So if you highlight that, you're more likely to read it more carefully, and you're more likely to answer it correctly because you took your time and you went slow and steady. Okay, describe where you will find the writing prompt. The writing prompt, when you open up the SAGE writing test, the prompt itself, the question that you're going to answer, is on the right-hand side of the screen, kind of at eye level, not closer to the top, and it'll tell you what the program wants you to write about. I suggest you highlight that prompt before you read the passages. Highlight the prompt so that you're thinking about what key information you need to be pulling out of the text so that you can write information about it. Okay, next one says, describe where you will find the passages for your writing assignment. The passages are located on the left-hand side. And if you remember right, you can use those arrows to make it bigger so that you can read those passages. Don't forget your tools. Make sure that you use that highlight tool to highlight any key information and write that key information on a piece of paper on your graphic organizer. Okay, so make sure that you are using the tools, and you'll find your passage on the left-hand side of your screen. The next one says, tell me the steps you will take to create a complete writing test. First step I would suggest is you read the prompt and highlight the prompt. Next step, you're going to read the passage. Read it very carefully. You're going to highlight key information. You're going to write that key information down on a piece of paper. Then, if your teacher has taught you to make a graphic organizer on your piece of paper, you're going to take time to take that key information and put it into a graphic organizer. And then you are going to type your paper. But remember, to make a complete writing test, you need to have an introductory sentence. You need to follow that with details, and then you need to have a concluding sentence. Those are the most important steps. You need to have an introduction, details, and then a concluding sentence. It says, if I cannot figure out how to use the tools or the SAGE program, I can raise my hand and talk to my teacher. True. Anytime you have any questions about how to use the tools, anything like that, to find out which tools you should be using. For instance, in a math test, if it says use the connect line tool, what tool are we going to use? Yep, the connect line tool. We're not going to use the add point and add a bunch of dots all over our screen. We are only going to use the connect line tool. All right, here's one that some people get confused about. Every single passage can be read to you. The answer is no. The passage on the left-hand side in a reading test cannot be read to you. On a writing test, usually it will be read to you. But on a reading test, they want you to test how well you're reading that passage. So it cannot be read to you. So that is actually false. So no, not every passage can be read to you. All right, when taking a reading test, the Sage software will read the passage to me, and the answer is no. So just like the question above, no, you cannot have the reading test read aloud to you. So the next question says, I can have the questions read to me, and that is yes. Almost in every single case, the question itself on the right-hand side of your screen can be read to you. You click the three little lines, click speak question, and it will read it to you. I love that this is a 100% filled in. I should show my work on a math test on a piece of paper. Yes, never do it in your head. I won't know that you're trying your best if I don't see the math work on the paper. So the answer is absolutely 100% yes, you have to show your work on a piece of paper. Even if you wanted to, you could fold your paper and label them for so if there's 20 questions, you'd label it 1 through 20 so that you knew you had work on every single one. Describe to me what I should see when you are reviewing. What should it look like to me? So when I'm walking around, I should see that you are going back to the very beginning and pretending like you have never seen that question before. I should see you writing down the problems on the paper. I should see that you are trying your hardest and it looks like you've never seen that before. I should see you going back to the very beginning. I should see you using the strike through tool. I should see you having the questions read to you. I should not see you just skipping through to see if you answered things. Okay, so I should see you pretending like you've never seen that question before. The next one says, describe what you will do when reviewing. When you review, you will answer 5 questions and go back and pretend like you've never seen those 5 questions before. You'll pretend like there's not an answer there. You will read through everyone carefully. On the math test, you'll rework every single problem, and you will pretend like you have never, ever seen it before. Let's see. Some people, let's read some of those responses. It says we should be very focused and not be lollygagging. I like that. We will be serious. That's another good one. Okay, read it through again and again, not talking to your friend and not talking out loud. Highlight each passage. Read the passage more than 5 times and check your answers. Go back to the first number, make sure I have an answer where I want, and strike through the other ones. Ooh, I love this. Use spell check and type a bit more. Look through the prompt. Make sure you're answering the prompt. Reread that prompt again. Those are all great ideas. The next one says, let me make sure I have it right. Okay, the next one says, I feel ready to take the language arts reading test. Looks like most of you feel pretty ready. Some of you even strongly agree. 22% of you guys are just ready to ace that test. That's awesome. Okay, next one says, I feel ready to take the Sage Science test. 3rd graders, don't panic. You're not taking this test. But this is pretty awesome. 31% of you say that you strongly agree that you're ready to take the test. That is awesome. And the last one says, I feel ready to take the math test. That's pretty good too. 27% of you feel like you are strong, really, really ready, and 42% of you feel like you're pretty ready. That's awesome. Now, coming down to the most important questions on this test is this one. I will not be mad at Mrs. Davis for making me take the Sage test. Remember, I don't write the test. I just have to have you take it. So you can't get mad at me. I promise that I will reward you with something nice at the end of SAGE testing if you work your best or work your hardest and do your best. Okay, so you can't be mad at me. It's not my fault. I didn't write the SAGE test. I just have to have you take them. And the last question. I am so excited to see that 100% of you said that Mrs. Davis is the most awesome computer teacher ever. It makes me feel so good that everybody agreed that I'm the best computer teacher ever. All right, kids. If you have any questions for me or for your teachers, talk about it now. We want to make sure that you feel confident and ready to take this test. I believe in you guys. I think that you will do awesome. We've practiced a lot. I know that you guys are ready to take this test. But the one thing that I am concerned about is a little bit of behavior. So let's talk about that for a minute. When you hit the door, when you walk in through the door, whether you're in the computer lab or the library or your classroom, you will get your game face on. You will not speak to one person next to you or people across the way. You will only have your game face on. You'll be completely 100% silent. Third graders, when you come into my writing or into my computer lab, you'll be given a clipboard and a sharp pencil and plenty of paper. So don't worry about bringing a clipboard, but the 4th and 5th grader teachers are going to make sure that you guys have a clipboard and a sharp pencil and paper. Just remember, when you walk into those rooms, it's a SAGE test. You do not talk. Now, what happens if somebody's headphones are unplugged when they do their sound test? Are we going to react to that? Nope, we're going to pretend like we didn't even hear it. We're not going to giggle or laugh or anything. Now, what happens in the computer program if it stalls or if it takes a long time to get approved? Are we going to make a big deal about that and start talking? Nope, we're going to just be patient. Remember that sometimes that happens with computers, and that's okay. All right, what else? Oh, don't forget, when you sit down, when your teacher or myself or Mrs. Bowden tells you to, I want you to stand up. I want you to do your best power pose. I want you to get your game face on and ready to go. And I want you to follow directions, and you're going to follow your teacher when they tell you to. Channel your inner superhero, and you're going to look at that computer and you're going to stare it down. And you're going to say, I got this. And then probably you'll say it again because I want to make sure that you're really ready. And you're going to say, I got this. Okay? You guys are smart, confident kids. I know that you're ready for this. I'm excited to see how well you do. And good luck, but make sure you promise me you get a good night's sleep on Sunday night. Come ready to take this test and remember everything we talked about. All right, guys, I'll see you Monday.